It's the Ask JP podcast with JP Morrell. Now, let's start the show. Here's JP.
All right, so welcome to the Ask JP podcast. We are so excited today to have our last candidate from the district.
Last candidate.
Chronologically,
chronologically, you are the third candidate. You are the person who is doing cleanup. We have Ed Carlson with us, and as you know, with these particular podcasts dealing with the different races, this is going to be done in kind of a quick format. We're trying to keep it to around tight 30 minutes. We'll ask some questions. You can extrapolate as long as you want on the questions. We sent a list beforehand so everyone could be aware of what the questions are. We probably won't get to every single one of them. Sure. If you have one that you want to riff on and you find an opportunity to do it, you can riff on one of the other questions that we didn't get to ask yet. But that's kind of the format. So thank you for being here. And Monet, I hand off to you.
All right. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Ed. We definitely appreciate it. To start, let's do just some intro questions. Why did you decide to run for the seat? What makes you the best candidate? And what do you see as the needs of the constituency that you're looking to represent?
All right. Well, if you'd asked me in January, I would not have told you that I was going to run here. I've just been very, very concerned about the problems related to the opioid epidemic and the deaths related to it. Mm-hmm. In 2009, there were 9 deaths in the whole state of Louisiana. There were 10 deaths in the whole state of Louisiana in 2009 from opioids. Last year alone, in 2022, there were 499 in Orleans Parish alone. So my background, it is ridiculous. It's out of control. And everyone throughout the state is seeing crime going on the rise, problems associated with it. With the opioid epidemic, there's a huge connection to crime and the increase in the drug overdoses and the people that are abusing prescriptions. Right now, for every 100 people in the state of Louisiana, there's 74 opioid prescriptions. So if you think about that, that's ludicrous because we shouldn't have that many open prescriptions. Mm-hmm. So we have pharmaceutical oversupply, right? That's hitting the community. Plus you have fentanyl, which is driving everything in the community and keeping the prices low for opioid products, but people are dying from the fentanyl. And the fentanyl is just killing people left and right. The reason why I think I'm the best person for this job is I've been working in the addiction treatment field for 37 years. I'm the CEO of Odyssey House. We're the largest addiction treatment provider in the state of Louisiana. We have over 320 staff. We treat over 2,000 people a month on average. We cover all the way throughout South Louisiana. Currently, over the last 10 years, half the treatment providers have gone out of business in the state of Louisiana. So at the same time, you've got this huge need for treatment and treatment services. And what you've got programs going out of business because the way the environment is currently set up and the way everything is set up, we're not working with the providers. And there's a huge problem, there's no plan to deal with this. The way I believe I can reduce crime, not only in the city of New Orleans, but throughout the state by 30% by creating a tight network of treatment providers spread throughout the state and to get the Office of Behavioral Health and the state to develop a plan that could focus on providing treatment services, moving people into treatment services and keeping people into treatment services rather than putting them in jails or prisons, or also when they're being identified as overdose. People overdose in the emergency room, they just let them out. They don't even do anything with them. These people aren't being targeted to get into treatment and the services that they need. There is no plan currently on the state level. So the constituents in District 91, which is what I'm running for, I've been talking to people left and right. There's over 100 people died just in our district alone. So there are all these things that are happening and going on, and people are afraid because of crime and the issues. And I'm trying to give practical applications of steps that we can take to be able to fix the problem. So that's why I'm running.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a pretty soft lead in because I think you talk about addictive behavior and drugs. what is your position on the legalization of marijuana?
So my position is it should be legal, and it should be heavily taxed to pay for treatment. I also think alcohol should be taxed to pay for treatment, but that's a different story. But I don't have a problem whether it's legal or not. I've had a lot of people ask me this question a lot, and I'm like, it doesn't matter whether it's legal or not. I'm going to have to treat for it as running Odyssey House. And the most important people have to understand about the legalization of marijuana is it is a drug, and it is addictive, and it does have vast consequences. And my brother, who lives in California, he had voted for the approval for marijuana to be legal. And he's having difficulties with his kids who are teenagers, and the access is too great. They're not controlling it enough. So what's happening is his kids are getting in all kinds of trouble because they're using marijuana, and it's affecting their grades and their ability. And now he says, I wish I would have voted against it because it's not being controlled and regulated correctly. So it has to be heavily controlled and regulated. I think that when you get into the higher levels and higher dosage, that should fall into medical marijuana, not into recreational use. And some of the stuff you can get in California knock you out for a day or two. I mean, it's definitely not the marijuana when I was growing up. You know, it's like it has changed dramatically, and the science behind it is really strong. But you're going to have a good regulatory component, and I think you should tax it to pay for treatment because we're going to need it.
Absolutely. I want to kind of go back to we touched on crime a little bit, and I'm so intrigued. I was looking at your website, and you actually have a plan on your website to address crime, and a lot of it is dealing with behavioral health and substance abuse. So can you kind of go into that plan more in for not only like public safety and crime, but and how that specific relation to behavioral health and substance abuse?
So since I've been doing this for a really long time, I'm president of our national association. I helped start our statewide provider association. I also do work with the United Nations on non-governmental organizations around drug addiction. And so we come together and we look at trying to create policies. And so I'm really kind of obsessed with this idea of what are the things that we have to do to sort of fix some of the problems with the aftermath and the things that drug addiction has an impact on. New Orleans is well known for its laissez-faire attitude towards substance abuse. And I like to joke a little bit that, we're kind of on a 300-year binge here in New Orleans. Maybe we might want to kind of
pretty accurate
focus ourselves up a little bit and reprioritize ourselves. I'm not talking about getting rid of drinking on the streets, but I'm just talking about we may need to rethink some of the things that we're doing. And so part of that really has to do with how we're providing and what we're doing with around addiction and addiction treatment services. One of the things that I found when I first came to Odyssey House back in 2005 is there was no continuum of care. And one of the things that we've done at Odyssey House is we have the full continuum of care under one umbrella. We have to create, and Odyssey House cannot do this by itself. We need to bring in more providers. We need to create a good, strong network of collaboration and continuum of care. And we have to have a good, strong network of case management services to follow up on people. Like the guy who ODs in the emergency room, somebody needs to be in there talking to them and getting them into treatment, right? So, but what we also need to do is a better collaboration and coordination between the courts, the jails, probation, parole, also the department, DCFS, and all of those departments need to be coordinating better and stronger around moving people into treatment. And, one of the things I'm really interested in is more of an expansion role of helping to push people into treatment. There's plenty of studies out there that show if you mandate somebody to go to treatment, or if they go voluntarily, the outcomes are the same. So why not make everybody go, right? So if the outcomes are the same, and I really think nobody goes to treatment voluntarily. So even the person that comes into our program say, yeah, I want to go to treatment, what really they're saying is the consequences of my life have gotten so bad, I need to do something about it. And really, people have lost the ability to choose. So if you lost the ability to be able to choose whether you want to use drugs or not, we have to step in as society and say, okay, we got to stop the madness. You can't keep doing this. We need to move you into treatment, because if not, you're going to die, or you're going to kill somebody, or you're going to do more damage and problems here in society. And we don't do that. And we need a better system to be able to do that. Part of the reason why I'm focusing on this is a big local issue, but it's also a statewide issue. Addiction treatment is managed by the state. So the state needs to be heavily involved. And obviously addiction doesn't look at, parish borders or boundaries, right? You've got to be able to deal with this issue no matter what parish somebody's in, whenever somebody's been identified, and how we need to move people into treatment. I hope that answers the question.
Well, it's an interesting point when you talk about the statewide application. It's more than likely that the governor's mansion will be occupied by one of the Republicans who are running for governor. And if a Republican is elected governor, what is your plan as a Democratic lawmaker to pursue your policy goals in a Republican supermajority legislature with a Republican governor?
So this is probably one of the biggest issues that's a bipartisan issue. I mean, because addiction doesn't care whether you're a Republican or I've had as many people in Republican positions, in government, reach out to me to help get somebody into treatment as I have had from the Democrat side. People realize the value of treatment and treatment services. There's also a cost effectiveness component to this, which is really important to understand. For every dollar you spend on substance abuse treatment, you save $7 in its cost to society. We had actually put in we did an economic impact study on Odyssey House. And at the time, our budget was about $11 million a year. And they came in and they evaluated the work and services that we did. And they estimated that the work that we did saved the state of Louisiana almost $79 million a year. So, and now we're a $35 million a year organization. So we think we're probably saving the state of Louisiana anywhere from $125 to $140 million. So if you think about cost savings components, you bring in numbers like this, it's hard for people in any party to not pay attention. And even if you don't care about the human suffering piece, right? You just want to look at the cost benefit analysis. It will save a huge amount of money. And it will also help putting our state back on track. Everybody's got to be tired of us being at the bottom of all the wrong lists and at the top of all the wrong lists. And for the last 3 years in a row, we've been at the bottom, number 50 on healthcare outcomes. And they say it very clearly, the reason why we're down at the bottom of healthcare outcomes, we're number 50, is because of deaths related to opioids. It's because we have a huge addiction problem and we're not addressing it.
Well, that's an interesting point, because I can tell you that when I was in the legislature under Jindal, the whole reason why we had the beginnings of a criminal justice reform package was because it was driven by libertarian Republicans who were looking for the cost savings from reviewing and revisiting incarceration. Because basically they were like, we have individuals, especially the elderly and medically compromised, who are in jail, and the cost of actually keeping them in jail, especially we had guys in jail for life for nonviolent crimes, were cancer patients. And if they were outside of the prison system, they'd be Medicaid eligible.
Right.
They would be going to get treatment. And the likelihood of someone who's stage 3, stage 4 cancer on chemo reoffending is 0.0%.
Right.
And there was a big push that began under Bobby, and it carried through Governor Edwards' first term, where a lot of the support from Republicans to look at criminal justice reform was not born out of them waking up one day and Jesus having come down and said, this is what's fair. It was, this is expensive. This is all really expensive.
Right.
And the cost savings that we had there was significantly able to be reinvested in government. And so to your point, I think as someone who was a legislator, that argument, when you're able to show the dollars and cents that are saved and better prioritized in making adjustments to how we deal with addiction and crime, really could reap dividends, because you're right. Not everybody is, I'm a huge, I would say, devotee of Fred Rogers about like interacting with people and seeing them as humans.
Right.
In the legislature, sometimes they see them as walking debt obligations. Mm-hmm. And whenever you're able to translate humanity, but in the lens of, and you'll also save this money,
right,
they get very receptive.
They do. And I have been doing this for a really long time, and I have always found bipartisan support. I mean, I bugged you so much when you were in the state legislature.
You did.
Everybody.
You did.
I'm always on people about, hey, this. And I will say that one of the things you saved us was the 1115 waiver that we did for, made the Office of Behavioral Health apply for, because of the
I remember, and that was under Jindal. That was under Jindal. That was under Jindal, where we had to make them ask for a waiver that would have saved the state money.
Right, it saved the state. It was ridiculous that we had to even argue about it. And the state was like, "No, we're not going to do it." And I was like, it would have had a huge negative impact on drug treatment program throughout the state. And you single-handedly grabbed everybody and pushed them in the right direction. So I really appreciate that.
I appreciate that. It's one of those times where I remember I'm like, God, we were stupid. like I appreciate the shout out, but also was like, it was really when you first approached me over it, and I was like, wait, we're not doing what? And then we had to pull in heads of departments to go, this is gonna cost us money. And they're like, yeah, it's fine. We'll find the money somewhere. And I mean, we're very, to the people listening, Ed was tremendously persistent in making the state not be stupid and have the money to do addiction treatment, because it would have come out the state coffers. By coming out the state coffers, it would have been reduced significantly because we don't pay for it. Yep. And it would have been a train wreck. And you were instrumental in avoiding the massive train wreck that was coming. Monet, I know you got the next question. So
it was very important.
No, I'm just really enjoying the conversation. I really appreciate, Ed, your point of making that distinction that substance abuse and, fighting it is bipartisan, and it's not just a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. It's not even a New Orleans issue. I have family that lives along the river parishes, and they have dealt with addiction as well. And, arguably, it's even worse if you live in a rural area that doesn't have as many of the resources as we do in New Orleans. So, I definitely appreciate you making that distinction. And, talking about substance abuse, it makes me think, I was reading an article from Verite News yesterday about the unhoused population, which, often at times goes hand in hand with substance abuse, and how a disproportionate amount of our unhoused population are queer and non-gender conforming. So what do you see as the lay of the land right now in Louisiana when it comes to queer rights and queer issues?
It's poor at best. We're doing a horrible job of being inclusive. And in fact, we're trying to, and I just see that there's a group of people that are really obsessed with this idea. And it's of in some ways punishing them, for being who they are. Mm-hmm. I take a very libertarian approach to things like this. We just leave everybody alone, right? You be whatever you want to be, enjoy yourself. If you have kids that have issues, let the parents decide. Don't make this an issue because of your religious perspectives. It has to be something, we have to leave people alone. And I'm very, very concerned about the LGBTQI plus community and how they've been impacted by some of the legislation and the way people are coming about at this. And it's so ridiculous. I mean, and if I just feel like it's, and unfortunately, there's going to be more of this to come. And I think a lot of this stuff is going to wind up being worked out in the courts, because we're not going to have a majority. The Democrats, unfortunately, are not going to be in a position, and there doesn't seem to be enough of the middle of the road wise Republicans who's just leave people alone, that are going to be in the legislature this coming session. So I am concerned about that. So it's not good. But we have to make it better. And I think probably the biggest way we're going to be able to deal with that is challenging it from outside in the courts.
Well, that's a great lead into the next question. What is your stance on abortion? Be specific, and kind of your view on how abortion is being treated in the state of Louisiana.
So I am pro-choice, 100% pro-choice. I have two daughters, and they don't live in the state because of this stance. So they are like, my body, my rights. And you know what? I don't have to live here. And so they moved. And so, much to, and I miss them, but one's living in Barcelona. I like visiting her. So, but, there are perks to that side. But, but the problem is that I think it's ridiculous. But the big problem is we're going to need to get a big majority of the legislature to be Democrat, and probably a Democratic governor, as well as, convince the rest of the state enough to believe in that they would vote for a constitutional amendment, because everything is etched in such difficult law. It's going to take years to be able, unless something happens on the federal level. And so, the sad part is that, it's just going to be dark times for this. And I feel for my state, because I think what happens is we do these crazy things like this, and that affects everything across the board. Economics, right? Social impact, trying to maintain and keep people in the state, right? Because people get to a point like, hey, you know what? If I can't be who I want to be, I can't do what I feel is right for myself and my body, I'm going to leave. And that's the sad part. So we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. Yeah. But I still love New Orleans. I still love Louisiana, but we're sometimes our own worst enemy.
Absolutely. You mentioned your two daughters who don't live here anymore. Kind of a good segue into our next question. I chose to stay here because I'm from here. I'm not going anywhere. I'll put my house on stilts. I'll float in a boat. I don't care. But my sister,
I'm the same way. So I'm the same way. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. My sister, who is in nursing school right now, has a bit of a different perspective. She, once she graduates and, is able to get started a little bit, I think she's got her eyes on leaving. So as someone who, has two children that have left the state in adulthood, what do you say to that recent college graduate that's thinking of leaving the state?
Well, as I did point out to my daughters, both of them, and I would probably say to anybody else, is that, part of the process is leaving isn't going to solve the problem. So if you feel passionate about these things, you need to stay and help us work through them, and we need to have a better fundamental shift on moving some of these things. And I think some things are very, very much heading in that direction. But the problem is that a lot of the younger, they don't want to wait, and they don't want to try to do the work. But my thing would be that we could fix these problems, but people have to stay to be able to work them through.
Okay, and I'll do the last question this time, Monet, and then we can go to your closing. Okay. How do you plan to address the unsustainable rise in homeowners insurance premiums? I know, as someone who lives in New Orleans, we all know that the three things that are killing people functionally from staying in their house and affording it are the property taxes, which are spiked significantly, insurance premiums, and basically, generally speaking, the quality of life issues like sewage and water board and the like. But when it comes to homeowners insurance, that's something that has to be addressed at the legislative level. So kind of what's your opinion on kind of high home insurance rates, and what do you think you can do as a legislator to address them?
So I'll give you a quick example. So Odyssey House, we own all of our properties, and we are very proud of that. We also operate as debt-free as an agency. We've been very good at raising money and putting money away. But we're constrained by how much revenue we can generate, et cetera. Our normal property insurance for wind and hail was around $230,000 a year. Last year it went to $900,000.
Wow.
So the impact it's going to have on businesses, nonprofit agencies. Yeah, I didn't get a rate increase to cover this. I mean, it is out of control. And so part of the thing, when I look at the issue around insurance, I see what we need right now is we need a private-public partnership that can focus on pulling in not only the private sector, but also the state of Louisiana government. And we need to do something combined together. Maybe something very similar to how we manage, for example, the state Medicaid program, with insurance companies managing the public dollars that we have that come in together, and they work together with how they manage that out in the community. So I would probably look at trying to help to create some kind of a public-private partnership to help drive our prices down. I think part of the thing that we have to do is we also have to look at things for a longer term period of time. Like, let's say, for example, we're right now, everybody's year to year, and it's hurricane season. So we all kind of like look down and we pretend like, oh no, don't hit us. Right. And then it goes by and we're like, okay, we're good. We're all good. We're good. And then one swings around and gets us. If we're going to have to look at things on more multi-year process. And so part of that is going to be, I think if the government can work with citizens to help sort of, especially with storm mitigation and helping with dealing with some of the climate change and the issues with coastal restoration and helping to expand that more, as well as that investment combined with sort of working with, because I think a lot of the insurance companies, they don't want to come here and do it alone. But if they have to do it, if they did it with a partnership with the state, I think they would be in a better position, because then they could help to sort of manage and mitigate some more of their risk. So that's sort of my thinking on that.
All right. The closing is yours, just kind of close us out and speak to your voters, the ones that are listening to this podcast, why they should vote for Ed Carlson, October 14th.
Okay, so on October 14th, I'm here to tell you that I have a specific plan. I have a long list of specific legislations I would focus on. And one of the things I would focus on is maximizing federal funds that could help us more as a state to be able to combat and deal with these problems. One example that I have is I would apply for an 1115 waiver specifically to allow Medicaid to be able to be billed within the jails and prison for the last 6 months of service. California just got this approved. That would save the state money, but then you could also incorporate addiction treatment, mental health, and primary care services and be able to bill Medicaid for it. That's just one example of the things that we could wind up doing to focus on helping to expand services. The more we expand services, the more we leverage our federal dollars and we get them into the hands, and the more that we can partner to develop and work with providers throughout the state, we can deal with this problem. I love New Orleans. I love Louisiana. I love the state that I live in. I'm not going anywhere, regardless of what happens on October 14th. And I'll still be a pain in the ass to whoever gets elected. If I get elected, I'll be a pain in the ass to myself. And so the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to advocate for the work and the services that need to be for this particular population. Until we solve the addiction problem, we're not going to fix our crime problem, and we're not going to fix our other problems that are impacting us across the board from addiction. And that's why I would ask you to vote for me on October 14th.
That's a fantastic closing. Ed, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
This has been a tremendous opportunity to talk to you about this, and I'll wish you luck on the campaign trail.
And I'm having fun with it, so I'm just going to keep having fun and enjoying myself. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you guys around, I'm sure.